Welcome everyone to the Meet ECPS Post-Secondary Esports Across Canada panel. My name is Alex Estrella, and I'm very happy to be joined by an amazing group of panelists. So we're joined today by Sean Burney from St. Clair College, Pudge Goop, as well as Sam Shoop Young. How's everyone doing today?
Doing
I'm doing
awesome.
great.
Yeah, doing great.
Yeah, great to be here on what day of the week are we? Wednesday? Yep, we are here on a Wednesday. The days kind of just blend in together. So yeah, for those of you tuning in, thank you again. Like I mentioned, this is the Meet ECPS Post-Secondary Esports Across Canada panel. We're just going to be having some great conversation. We would love for you to get engaged, so feel free to put any questions or any topics potentially that you would want us to cover in the chat, and we're definitely looking out for that. But yeah, we'll just kind of dive right in. So, for for those viewers who are tuning in who may have never heard about ECPS or Esports Canada Post-Secondary, Sean, if you're okay, just kind of talking a little bit about what is ECPS.
Sure. So I'll give kind of like the little background, I guess. This would have been maybe 4 or 5 years ago. At this point, collegiate esports in Canada was just starting to transition from purely club level to, starting to get a handful of varsity programs established, or if not fully varsity, at least programs or schools that had more robust resources or access to resources than we saw previously. And so at that time, I realized that maybe there was an opportunity to um, gather all of the individuals pushing these projects across the country into a chat and just seeing where we could help each other out, trying to basically elevate the entire ecosystem up. So at that time, a couple of the schools were Fanshawe. So I spoke with Tyler Hetherington at Fanshawe quite a bit. Another one was Keanu College and Durham College. And so Ben Bramley had worked with both of those schools. So I originally reached out to those two individuals, Ben Bramley and Tyler Hetherington, because I had known them from previous other projects, and just sort of pitched the idea to them. What if we create some sort of organization for Canadian, collegiate programs? Um, and we got to work just kind of building out like what it would do, what would be the goals, what would be the mission. And then eventually there came a certain point where we had a discussion internally, like, should we try to go and establish this as a legitimate organization, go through the proper legal channels to do that on our own? Or should we, just partner with Esport Canada? Esport Canada exists. Why don't we just take what we've started here, approach Esport Canada, see if we can, you know, um, join up in some sort of capacity? And, we eventually came to this arrangement where Esport Canada Post Secondary somewhat acts as its own sort of independent body, like representing the post secondary college and university programs, within the Esport Canada ecosystem as a whole. Um, and so that's kind of how we got established. And then, from there, it was about trying to figure out, what would be the point of doing all of this? Like, what do we want to get out of it? And so we started establishing what we eventually referred to as the standards of excellence. So the idea was, if we kind of create a checklist that programs could use or clubs could use to kind of see what does it take to go from where I am now to becoming a varsity program, basically creating something aspirational for programs to look up to, and then helping those schools achieve that. So over the years, over the last handful of years, five years or so, I've been in conversations with a ton of different students or faculty or people working in different departments at schools all around Canada, that are interested in developing esports at their schools, that want to eventually take it to the next level. And so that's kind of one of the original goals, was just having this centralized location where people that want to start this at a school somewhere in Canada can find it, get engaged with us, and then hopefully we can help them, get the resources they need or the recognition they need at their schools. So that, at a very basic level, that's kind of what Esport Canada was, or post secondary was meant to accomplish.
That's awesome. So quick shout out to Benny S. I know, when I kind of got involved in this space from when I was a student, I knew him over at Durham College where I am now. And then obviously, like you mentioned, he moved over to Keanu. Uh, over in Alberta. But yeah, I think that's a really great overview, Sean. I think that's even, we're going to have those conversations, and those tuning in are going to kind of get to hear where we're all kind of like centered around, and where kind of where our programs are currently. But I think it's, esports is such a unique space, kind of like you mentioned, because everyone is at a different starting point, right?
Mhm.
And there's so much like moving parts where, I know even at Durham, we have a dedicated space which, originally fell under one department at the college, and then it kind of got shuffled around, and then it was under athletics, and now it's under us at the student association. So, even if you do have a dedicated space, there's so many things that could kind of change. So I think definitely having, kind of that like checklist of like, hey, no matter where you are, just kind of knowing like what potential next steps you would take, or even knowing what resources are out there, whether it be internally or externally at, colleges like St. Clair, who's doing so much great things. All right. So next question. So what role would you say ECPS plays in supporting collegiate programs across Canada? Yep. So whoever is
Yeah.
comfortable. Again, it's more of just a, it's just going to be more of a conversation. So yep.
At least in my experience with the council, I think that the greatest strength of ECPS is just kind of setting like the framework for being able to get in touch with other communities and other programs. Because from my experience, otherwise, being in the esports sphere, it can be kind of hard to figure out, well, who should I reach out to, who runs what program, to reach out for advice, or maybe you want to collaborate with someone if it's a close school to you or whatever. And I think that ECPS is just kind of lays it out so that it makes everything a lot more accessible.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that too. From my experience with it, just having that, Canada is it's a large country. There's a lot going on coast to coast, and being able to be a part of the council and having people across the country here working on esports in Canada definitely helps figure out the land, what people are doing differently in different regions and spaces, ones that are more spread out from each other or more dense populations. So, 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I'd say
Awesome.
too, like for me, having groups like this are really important to just hear about what everybody's doing, and every once in a while, even for a program like us, some people might look at St. Clair and be like, oh, what could you like what could you learn, being, but the reality is like I'm learning new stuff from different people doing things all the time in different spaces, like big or small. Like there are schools all over that do really cool things, even with no resources. Like one thing that ends up happening, actually, this is like common in business. Sometimes when you have a lot of resources, you end up kind of losing that, like, that ambition or that drive for creativity, right? So, looking at the young programs out there or the clubs out there that have like nothing, and seeing how they get creative and come up with new ideas, um, can really inspire some stuff that we steal and we end up kind of mimicking over here at St. Clair, right? So, nothing that we've created here at St. Clair, I would say, is like completely novel. Like it's not something that we've like invented out of thin air, right? Everything that we do at St. Clair, we've gotten from somewhere, whether it's other programs or whether it's traditional sports or athletics or content creators or wherever. Like we're looking for sources of inspiration all over the place, and I think ECPS as an organization kind of creates that environment where we get together on a regular basis, see what everybody's up to, learn from each other, get advice, and then hopefully we can bring that back to our own communities and help grow or improve like what we're working on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like how, we each kind of, there's definitely overarching themes, right? Like, hey, we want to be part of that community, right? We want to learn from each other. And I think you said it best, Sean, even though like a college that may be just starting out, right? They may be looking at a college like St. Clair that's like more established and be like, hey, this is the pillar. But I think for you to kind of even highlight that like, hey, even if we're considered to be like an established program, we're always looking. You don't want to stay like stagnant, right? You always want to kind of remain relevant and even find new things, right? Just so you kind of
Exactly.
don't get lost in the weeds. So that's really great insight. Thanks, everyone. So next, I would love to try and just we'll go around. Sam, I'm thinking we'll start with you, but if you're just able to kind of talk about which what projects or what team you're a part of with ECPS, and then any potential projects that you've been working on, just to kind of give any viewers some insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So my role in the council, I focus more on the marketing side of things. So working on our social media and connections and partnerships, across all platforms. For most projects that I've been working on since beginning here, is mostly just partnerships with different some we did some foundational work. So with I forget what the company's name was. That's not very nice, but working with different partnerships, connecting, just trying to grow our voice out there a little bit more and get connected to a lot more esports focused accounts and people to get across. Sorry.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries. Pudge, if you want to go next.
Yeah, I'm part of the community development team, although I'd say that's a pretty loose term. Just kind of float around, help what's needed. Um, but the big thing that I'm trying to work on over the summer is trying to make our server and whatnot a little bit more accessible, to try and open it up uh, to more eyes, and just make it easier to come in, connect with people, and yeah.
Do you want to plug the Discord server? Might as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the link right in front of me.
No worries. You take a second if you want to, we'll come back to you if you want to grab that info. We'll do a little plug before we move to the next question. Sean, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I guess like the major. I mean, I like to kind of be involved wherever I can, but I guess the major project within ECPS that I've kind of taken the lead on the last 4 years has been nationals. So the idea started again 4 years ago, and the idea was, well, all of our teams are playing in North American tournaments. So a lot of our teams throughout the country were playing in, NACE, or we're playing in NECC, different things like that, or CLOL, CVAL, etc. But there wasn't really a home for just like purely Canadian competition at that time. Since then, we do have some organizations that run leagues like CCL, like the Canadian Collegiate League, which is awesome. So they've, those guys have kind of started that up, and it's been a pretty awesome addition to our landscape. But nationals, the goal was, well, we especially made a realization that every year during November, there was always a week where all of the leagues would go on break for American Thanksgiving. And so during that week, Canadian programs, we would just be, sitting here twiddling our thumbs, like, well, when can we get back to work? What can we do here? So we realized, like, well, what if we just fill that gap? Why don't we just launch a tournament during American Thanksgiving? All eyes will be on us. Nobody else is playing or competing anywhere, and let's kind of own that time frame to highlight Canadian programs. And so we launched the event. Again, I think it would have been 2022. I think was the first year, and built like a week long competition culminating in a national championship on the weekends, highlighting the top 5 or 6 game titles in the country that had the highest participation levels. And we did it pretty grassroots. Like it's all run just purely through passion and volunteer time. There's no prize pool, there's no trophies. It's just pure competition, and it's the ability to compare yourself against everybody else in the country to see how you stand against the other Canadian programs. And I think it has become a very strong tradition now in the Canadian collegiate esports ecosystem, to the point where I'll get messages in May or June, like, when is nationals going to be next year. And we start kind of planting the seeds really early. So That's been a project that I've been pretty proud of, leading the way on for the last few years, and um, it's consistently done really well. Like we've had over 100 teams almost every year. I think maybe only one year we dipped to like 90 something teams, but we've had over 100 teams across the game titles competing. Somewhere around 20 to 30 different institutions are represented. So it's been a really valuable um, project for the ecosystem, in my opinion, and just something that's a lot of fun to run as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, and then I can speak on behalf of myself. So I am part of the research and data analytics team. And, one of the big projects I've been working on with my fellow council member has essentially been doing some research and seeing, hey, what programs are still around, not only in Ontario, but basically across Canada and all the provinces and territories, and essentially trying to build, somewhat of a definitive or even like a starting point as a resource of saying like, okay, this program, there's all these programs in Ontario, all these programs in Saskatchewan, etc. What levels are they? So, is it a club level? Do they have a varsity space? Do they have a dedicated venue on campus? So we've basically kind of been compiling that data. And then I know over the summer, we're essentially going to be doing some outreach to, whether it be the coordinators or that contact person, and trying to hopefully just kind of see the state of esports in general, just all across Canada. So I know that's a project that we're currently working on for our team. So next question is, and Pudge, we'll start with you if that's okay. How, or I guess better way to phrase it is, why did you first want to get involved with ECPS?
Yeah. When I learned about it, I just started taking over my program, CESU, like for University of Calgary at the start of this school year in the fall. Um, and I was just very ambitious with the goals that I wanted to achieve. I really wanted to grow my program. It's a club sport program, and the big goal before I graduate is to try and get more resources and potentially get a varsity program. I feel like that's every club esports program president's goal, and the big run of things. Um, but then I heard about this council, and I knew it was a good way of connecting with other presidents, other students. I know that there's sometimes teachers and staff that also we get a chance to talk to. So I kind of just applied. I really wanted to get in on that. I figured it'd be a good mentorship to for my position and try to grow my program.
Awesome. Sam?
Yeah. So I got involved. Originally, I joined nationals as a Valorant coach for my local polytechnic. We participated in 2 years, so I was in the ECPS channels and everything. And eventually, I saw the call for some council members, and I just most of my esports background is more in Counter Strike, but my general like feeling of how I was going about it is just a lot of people don't talk about Canadian esports in and any like network that I follow. Those stuff that goes under the radar. Maybe there's like a couple players that are in it that are, on the major teams and stuff talking, but generally I feel like a lot of people mash us up as more of like North America. So I decided that I wanted to join to kind of help strengthen and unify Canadian esports to be more on the map and be more present, and along with that help out our post secondaries and collegiates, and move forward in that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And Sean, I know you kind of touched a little bit on it earlier, but if you had anything to add?
Yeah, I guess one thing, I mean, so Pudge just mentioned, teachers. So I also do teach, right? So I'm a full-time faculty member. And like one of the concepts, and I always forget the name for the concept, to be honest with you. I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But so in sports management, there's this concept when you look at any sports league, right? You look at the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, et cetera, on the field or on the court, et cetera, your adversaries, right? You want to beat the other opponent across from you. But behind the scenes, the owners of all of those teams, they work together, right? So it's like this weird nature that you have in sports, and esports is the same, where you have to simultaneously be opponents and want to see the other fail, but then also simultaneously behind the scenes you want them to succeed. And I think you can think of Esport Canada post secondary in a very similar way, right? So you want to look at our program at St. Clair. you know, um, we have won a lot of stuff over the years because we do have like a kind of a substantial lead over the average program in Canada right now. But that's not like healthy in the long run. If I want to have a job, and if I want my students to graduate and get jobs, and if I want, the everybody to be happy and for things to be sustainable, we need to like elevate the bottom. Like we need to bring the average up quite substantially. And so a lot of the mission and why I want to stay involved and work on a project like ECPS is for that to be the case. I love it when my students graduate and then go off and help found programs. So Bernard, who is the chair of Esports Canada Post Secondary, that's a graduate from St. Clair, right? So he graduated from our esports program, and then he was hired at Humber College, and he's gone there and he's established the varsity program. Shadi Hannah as well. He works at a school at West at Bow Valley as an instructor. He worked previously at Keanu College as well as the director there for a little while. Also a graduate from St. Clair. So I think in the long run, if I can anything I can do to help more programs start up and get their feet under them, help pitch to their administration on why, I think Pudge, you mentioned like your goal, you want to be varsity by the time you graduate, right? Like I would love to help you accomplish that, at least give you some advice so that, you know, um, that is another destination for our graduates maybe to go one day. Maybe they do because you're a 4-year university, we're more primarily a 2-year, 3-year college. So in the long run, if you were to establish a proper varsity program there, we could have students graduate from St. Clair, go off to finish their bachelor's degree at your school, and the whole ecosystem gets a lot healthier and more sustainable, right? So there's a there's a big kind of like benefit for me and for the St. Clair program as other programs start elevating and getting more resources and more of a stronger footing under them.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
fun fact. I got shared the application to apply to ECPS from a student at St. Clair. So
There you go. There you go. Which student was it?
you may or may not know them. They're on one of the Overwatch teams, on the academy team. The name Aesthetic Sock or Chloe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Chloe.
Yeah,
Yeah, Chloe's
yeah,
around
yeah,
every
yeah.
day. Okay.
Used to
Cool.
used to be a student at University of Calgary. So
Okay, you know what? I did know that. Okay.
yeah,
And so Chloe said, "Hey, join the council."
yep.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Awesome. That's great insight. Thanks, everyone. And then just a reminder for those tuning in, if there is a topic or a question you have for the panel, don't be afraid to drop that in the chat. So again, this is going to be more open to anyone. If someone was interested in getting more involved in ECPS, whether it be a council or just to kind of find out more about the projects that we're kind of working on, what would your suggestion be for them to kind of get to that next step?
I say just reach out. I think it's just as much as reach out and talk to Bernard. He is kind of the headmaster, so to say, of the whole operation. But I'm sure you could reach out to lots of people. I'm sure you could reach out to Sean. He could help you out. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Don't
think it
worry.
sounds simple, but he's not wrong. Like the
yeah,
reality is, and my students, I see a couple of them in the chat. So like they'll know this. Like the first thing I say on the first day of class, not even class, like the first day of orientation is the value you're going to get from esports when you're at school is just getting out there and doing things. And even if you don't have a solid idea in place, just try something. And even if you fail, you're going to learn a lot from that failure, right? So just put your name out there, get involved with a project, use that project to gain experience, and then apply to the next project that's like a little bit bigger, right? There's a lot of different ways within Esport Canada Post Secondary that you could um, get involved. There's so many opportunities right now. So what you should do is kind of an audit of, okay, what is ECPS doing really well right now, and where are they really lacking? And any of the spots that where they're lacking, where ECPS is lacking, just think, okay, does my skill set allow me to fix any of those problems? And if it does, then just start doing it, right? So if you're like, wow, ECPS hasn't written any, articles in a long time. Okay, which is actually true, right? Like, no, there is no ECPS articles written. So if you're like a writer, or even if you're just really good at using AI to like help you write stuff, you could easily start writing some articles for ECPS. Like, hey, let's do a Canadian Nationals preview article. Cool. There we go. There's a project for somebody to work on next year. Let's do a end of year shout outs article where we shout out the cool things that happened in Canadian esports this year. There you go. Somebody could literally write that up today, and then you can put it out there. And then you've got your name on it, and that's its project. You're going to learn from it. Maybe you write that article and maybe it sucks. Like, maybe the article is really bad. You're like, oh, I can't believe I wrote this. But it's still going to be a starting point, and you're going to gain some confidence from doing it. And it's going to get easier and easier the more you do it, right? So, that's one example. Another one could be like, hey, I noticed that last year at, like, I'm going to think of nationals a lot because that's something I work on a lot. But you think, well, not last year at nationals, there was a bunch of these games that didn't end up on stream. So when nationals comes back around, I'm going to offer myself up to like stream a couple of those games just to make sure more of the content is captured. Easy opportunity for you to get involved. Costs you nothing. You probably have a computer at home already. Maybe you're lucky enough to be at a school with a facility. You can like borrow a PC there, and you're going to be contributing to the ecosystem, helping it get better, and also gaining that experience. You're getting your name out there a little bit more. You're going to start to get recognized in the space, and you'll be at the top of the list. Like, you're going to like elevate yourself up the list for opportunities as they come up, right? So I can't remember what the original question was at the start, to be honest
Okay.
with you. But basically, like, look for opportunities, look for gaps. Like, what is ECPS doing? What are they not doing? What could be done better? And then just put yourself like into that spot and just start doing it, start working on it. Those are the kind of students that generally succeed the most at esports. You have to really be ambitious and kind of like a go-getter in this space.
Awesome.
Really
And then
well
yeah,
said.
for those of you who are interested in just checking everything out, like Sean and Pudge mentioned, check out esportscanada.org/postsecondary. We do have a few questions in the chat that I would love to bring to the team. So first question, how has ECPS incorporated inclusivity in its structure to support people in marginal communities?
Well, I'll start off with one. I would say, like, just to be completely honest, it's not something we're necessarily doing an amazing job at. I mean, you can look at our panel right now, and we have four white male guys talking about it, right? So we have some work to do, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, like, we're open and we're looking for opportunities. We're looking for help in that regard. I would say one project that we have added, which was, I can't remember if it was this year or the year before. I think it's been 2 years now. We did add a Valorant GC tournament to nationals just to kind of give that community an opportunity to, to compete and to earn a national championship. So that was something that we've tried to do. Um, Another kind of, it's not maybe inclusivity towards like marginalized communities, but I guess just in general um, from the standpoint of inclusivity. Um, we have opened things up to beyond, like, originally when ECPS was founded, the kind of goal was really to focus on varsity programs, and we've opened the doors up to like more club programs, club teams and stuff like that, to kind of be more broader in our approach. I think early on we anticipated, at least, like, myself, Tyler, and Ben, when we first got on board, we kind of anticipated that things would migrate from club to varsity in a lot quicker trajectory than what ended up actually happening. So if you go back to 2017, that's when the St. Clair program was founded. Durham was around the same time, maybe 2018, I can't remember.
2019.
2019. Okay.
Yep.
So between 2017 and 2018, 2019, 2020, you probably went from like one up to the maybe like seven. And then we anticipated like things would ramp up. Okay, especially around COVID. Like when COVID hit, there was like a little bit of a mini boom in collegiate because a lot of colleges, universities around the country were like, well, let's close down all of our athletics programs. What can we do instead? And they're all like, well, let's launch esports. So there was like a little bit of a talk then. It didn't really materialize. And so things have somewhat plateaued a little bit in like that transition from club to varsity programs in Canada. It's hard to pinpoint exactly the reasons why because the adoption has been a lot faster in the US, right? But regardless of that, like as a council about a year ago, I think it was, we kind of looked at how things went last year and we're kind of like, we need to open this up. We need to get more fresh eyes in here, more fresh perspectives, and see if, younger, more ambitious people can come in and start like pushing projects ahead, right? So I guess like from like a inclusivity perspective, I would argue that that was one step that we took as well to kind of open up the opportunities for more people to get involved from different types of backgrounds, different age groups and that sort of thing. But overall, I think there's a lot more that we could do. Um, and if you have ideas, like we kind of good segue from the previous topic, right? If you have ideas, just like bring it forward. Hey, I saw this. I have an idea. Why don't you try this, right? And we'd be open to listening for sure.
Awesome. And the next question I was sent from chat. What are some of the legislative and funding issues, if any, that ECPS may be facing? Sean, I don't know if you want to tackle this one.
You want me to start? Okay. Let's start with the funding one because that one's the easiest. We have no funding, right? So, I mean, Esport Canada as a whole, like you got to understand, Esport Canada as a whole, even beyond just ECPS, like it's a wide open book. You can go the every year they have a general like open membership meeting that you can attend and listen, and they'll go through the finances, and it's kind of funny every year because like, well, we have a total of $14 in our bank account. um Technically we owe Melissa, $472. Like that's pretty much what the funding of Esport Canada is right now. Like there you can a lot of people will look at that as a problem. I see that as an opportunity, especially for young people that are interested and love this stuff and want to get involved. Like you're getting in at the ground floor of esports in this country. It's we're at the early days, so I have this discussion with um some of the other directors in the US sometimes. So like Dan Clark from Maryville, for example, and people like that. And we kind of compare ourselves, like we're like, well, one day, we'll be the equivalent to, you open up your textbook and you're looking at like football in 1908, and you're looking at like the old grainy like black and white pictures, and you're like, oh, look at this guy, oh, that's John Sanderson, he founded the NCAA back in 1908, and he had $12 in a pack of gum. Like that's kind of where we're at right now. And so I think there's this urge, like we want things to ramp up so fast. Like we look at college football and college basketball in the US, and we're like, we could get there, we could become that like multi-billion-dollar industry. But we want to race out ahead, but the reality is like it's going to take a long time. It's going to be slow organic growth, I think, is what we need to focus on. And so it might be frustrating at times. But yeah, so to answer your funding questions, there is none. So everything that Esport Canada does, Esport Canada Post Secondary does, is purely volunteer, and it's purely just through passion. So now, if you want, like one interesting thing, and I'll explain the reasoning, if you just because we have time, maybe, or maybe it's interesting, I don't know. A few years ago, we were approached actually by a sponsor to sponsor Canadian Esports Nationals a couple years ago. A lot of people won't know this, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to put prize money into nationals." Um, the problem is they were only going to do it for 1 year, and so we turned it down. Okay, and the reason why was we didn't want to set the expectation. So this was 2 years in. We had over 100 teams competing in nationals. We're creating good value. So they come in and say, we want to give you several $1,000s put towards prizing. That's cool, and that would have been good for that year. But if we couldn't guarantee we were going to get it the next year, there was a major worry that the expectation from the community, the bar would have been raised to a point that when we took that prizing away, then the whole tournament would have collapsed, right? And I wasn't ready to take that risk. So for now, I would much rather build out our offerings in ECPS in a sustainable way, even if it does just like require sweat labor and stuff, for the time being. Eventually I would love to get to the point where there's some good money flowing through, and I have no doubt that at some point in my career, it will happen. Like it won't surprise me if in like nationals 2046, okay, that we have $100,000 in sponsorship flowing in for that event at that time. That will probably be the case. It might not feel like it right now, but it'll probably be the case. And we probably will have some brand name sponsors flying teams out, to nationals, to like, all right, nationals is gonna be held at Keano College in northern Alberta this year, and BMO is gonna. I see BMO on the slide, so BMO is gonna fly the top 8 teams out to Keano to play in their brand new facility that they just built, right? Like these are things, like if you have conviction and you really love this stuff, like you can like look ahead and be confident that that's the direction we're going. We might not know what it looks like right now, but like I have the conviction that it's going to get there in 20 years. We just have to make sure that we don't cut corners now, and hurt ourselves and end up slowing things down. Like you can look at the entire ecosystem over the last 10 years and you can see many examples of uh like esports people involved in the esports space that have taken some shortcuts, and it's kind of set us back, right? It kind of slows down our progress. A few years ago during COVID, there was sponsors that were coming in that like wanted to get involved in collegiate esports and pro esports. They were dumping money in, but those sponsors were not met with the returns that they were promised, and so they pulled all their money back out, and now they're scared to put money in, so now we have to regain their trust. So these like years that we're having to spend now grinding to regain their trust, if we would have just done things properly in the first place, maybe we would have saved ourselves a couple years, right? So that's also part of the reason why we turned down a sponsorship for Canadian nationals, is like, I don't know if we can deliver the value you're expecting. Like you're expecting us to reach thousands or hundreds of thousands of people with this, and I just don't think we can get there right now. Like that's just not where we're at. Like I'm going to be honest with you. I would much rather run this for free with no expectations, no sponsors that we're trying to cut corners to please, right? um so I guess that maybe answers the funding issue a little bit, at least gives you some interesting insights maybe. On the legislative side, I guess some of the challenges, like we started as an independent body and then joined up with Esports Canada, and obviously that comes with some challenges. So the constitution and bylaws have been rewritten like 2 times since then, within Esports Canada, and kind of the goal of Esports Canada right now is to align with what's going to be required for the eventual inclusion of esports into the Olympics and like nationals teams and things like this. And so Esports Canada post secondary has sort of had to like fit into that as well. So there's been some challenges there a little bit. um, but I would say the main challenge overall, if you want to think of like what challenges for ECPS, is finding the right people that want to step up and just like do things, and be relied, like that you can rely on. So like somebody wants to take on a project, like, and see that project through, and without too much oversight. Because at the end of the day, like you think Bernard, who's the chair, Bernard can't be micromanaging, 10 different projects. Like he needs people that just like pick up a project and just on their own get it done, you know? And that's kind of what ECPS could really use right now. So, I mean, if you happen to be listening and you're somebody like that, look for those projects, come on board. I'm going to do this, put the plan together, put it in motion, and just get it done on your own without needing like too much help or encouragement or reminders from, Bernard or the rest of the council. And that's going to help the whole ecosystem in a tremendous way. So,
Awesome. So this next question, I've been told. Oh, sorry, Pudge. Did you have anything to add, or?
No, no.
Okay,
I mean,
sorry.
it was really well said. I think that like people are very. It's great that people are very optimistic about esports, um, but they're also very angsty. Like they want everything to be done by tomorrow. Um, when like when you think of traditional sports, we like a lot of people in esports like to compare themselves to traditional sports. I think like Sean said, traditional sports are way, 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 way older. And it may seem that esports has been around for a while now, but it really has not. It's very much in the beginner stages. And I think it's kind of beautiful that it is just a volunteer thing. Like everyone that is involved is just here because maybe they just love a specific video game. Maybe they love the idea of competitive video games in general. Um, and I think if we're just all a little patient and we all just keep putting in small steps, I think it can grow. But yeah, I think, yeah, what Sean said was really correct.
Yeah, like you got to remember, if like collegiate esports itself only started like very very beginning in 2009. Okay, and but the reality is like the first varsity program wasn't until 2015. So you're only 11 years in to collegiate esports, really. So go back and look up what the NFL looked like 11 years in, or go back and look at what like the NCAA looked like 11 years in, and then you're going to start to get some understanding of like where we should be. And I think our expectations are very very lofty compared to what they should actually be right now. A lot of people joke about the early like era of professional sports in North America, and like you'll hear it in basketball. Oh, that was the era where you used to be playing against plumbers or whatever. And that was the truth, right? So like a lot of guys that played in the NFL or the NBA in those days or whatever, they would have a full-time job, and then during the season they'd go and play, and then they'd like, oh, okay, the season's over, back to like my plumbing job. That
Mhm.
was the case. That was reality. And but for us, we're like 10 years or 12, maybe 20 years at best into professional esports, and we expect everybody to have like 150K full-time benefit salaried positions. And it's like, well, that's not really realistic. And we've tried that, and we've tried to skip to that, with the franchise leagues and various things that have popped up in the pro level, and that's all come to bite us in the ass, right? Like now they've all kind of, we're unwinding all of that work, and it's like, well, what did we pay all these millions of dollars for? Like, where did it go? Well, we just threw it in a bonfire and we burnt it, right? So it's gone, and now we have to restart. We have to, now it's like, well, okay, well, we made a giant mistake. Let's just restart over and do it properly this time. And that's just unfortunately where we're at, right? So the same is true with collegiate esports. Like, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to grow. We're going to go through a ton of growing pains. And you've seen that in collegiate esports. Maybe not as much in Canada, luckily, although we have seen at least one. um, but in the US, over the last 2 years, if you're paying attention, there have been probably, that we know of, like 15 or 20 varsity programs that have like essentially shut down, right? So those were programs that were kind of built on promises that were never really delivered. And so we're paying, like, there's kind of some repercussions for that. You make a promise and you can't deliver, there's going to be a repercussion, and so you're seeing some of those programs shut down. So we just got to take our time and slowly build up, but there's so much value and promise here in the long run. um, and I think you can hopefully hear that in my voice. Like, I'm still very confident in what we're doing. I'm really passionate in what we're doing. I think we're going to get there. We just got to keep working together and figuring it out, essentially.
Awesome. So I've been told this next question is specifically for Pudge and Sam. Sam, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Sounds good.
As students who are part of the ECPS Council currently, how has being part of the council helped further your own school's esports program? Or like, what have you taken away as being part of the council that maybe you have brought to your program?
Okay. Sorry, I'm not a student at my program. I graduated on the pilot program of our current esports. So what I started at, I was a COVID um, collegiate student, and in our last semester, decided to do a pilot program, one semester of esports. I was lucky to be able to join onto it as a player. They ended up getting a coach and a manager for us, and we, did small practices, got lay of the land. Luckily, we were able to get jerseys too that year. It was pretty nice. And then after that, I skipped a year, and then I came back as a Valorant coach for my current program. But pretty much so this is just finished my third year coaching for our for Valorant. So Our main missions to um, explore and grow. Those get involved pretty locally, and we're pretty fortunate in the Lethbridge area to have our high schools also trying to participate in esports as much as possible. Um, a large, a good team that we have locally is the LCI Samurai. They're really big and they're competing on a national level in high school esports, which is really nice to see. And mostly just getting involved at lower levels is being helping us grow and stay optimistic, keeping on the right path. I mean, I think our program here at Lethbridge Polytechnic was very fortunate. We started under athletics and we're still under athletics, and we've been able to just see constant growth through every season that I've been a part of it. And even before that, before I was the 1 year I was off. And yeah, so I think staying um focusing local, focusing like Sean was mentioning, going um more on the the groundwork blower side of things and building up from there helps a lot. And yeah, so far we've been seeing good success with that. And just being a part of the community too. There's quite a few technology oh goodness technology focused events and centers that we try to have booths at, and we send the coaches and staff to go promote our program there. So yeah, just trying to be active around the community and making sure that people are aware of your existence and everything, and yeah, helps you keep going, helped us keep
Awesome.
going.
Awesome. Pudge?
Yeah. Like I said, that I just started taking over this program at the start of the year. And a lot of this year for me, just within internally in my own program, has been a lot of kind of a rebuild year, so to say. Pretty much all of the volunteer, or you could call them unpaid staff, all the people that make the club run, they were all graduating or they all didn't want to be involved anymore. And so it was up to me to try and build the program back up, get a bunch of new people on, and get everything running again. Um, and now that I kind of have a functioning program again, which is nice, I've been able to start hosting events and whatnot. And I have asked for lots of advice from people within the council. We had our first local LAN this year, and I got a lot of advice, especially from Anna at Waterloo, Anna Marbles, because I was very much um, inspired by Waterland that they do there every year, and I had a lot of good questions, and we had some good chats, and we're hosting another local LAN here in a couple weeks, which is super exciting. Um, just for like Calgary and surrounding area. And then I'm hoping that if I keep this trajectory, um, next year I'll be able to have an Alberta LAN, which would be really awesome and host lots of different games. The last few times we've just been able to do Valorant because it's the only thing of our program that's big enough to host an event like that. So that's the big goal, and I don't want to say it wouldn't be possible without the advice from people on the council, but I would definitely say that it helped.
Awesome. Appreciate the shout outs from both of you. So as we are slowly reaching the end, I would love to kind of, throw it out to the council with maybe one or two more questions. So first one, because everyone's always curious for people who, are somewhat involved in the esports scene, what initially made you want to get involved with your local gaming scene or esports community? Sean, I don't know if you want to start.
Okay, so um as like similar to I guess most people in the space, I'm a lifetime gamer, right? So when I was in like late high school, early university, I went to the University of Windsor down the road from St. Clair. And I started having just kind of game nights at my house, just inviting friends over. They'd bring their consoles over, we'd hook them up, play, Left 4 Dead 2 or Halo or whatever. And after like the second or third of those events, it got to a point where I had like 30 people over to the house to do that. And so we're at a point where like the living room was full, the dining room was full, the kitchen was full. Like I'm pretty sure we had somebody in the hallway like leading to the bathroom, right? Like it was like my dad and my mom were upstairs sleeping, and they came down and had to like kind of like navigate around gamers to get to the washroom or whatever. And so after that event, my parents were like, well, like, I'm glad you guys were having fun. It sounds like you had a good night, but you can't do that here anymore. Like, you're not going to do that in the house. It's too many people. So I was like, well, that's a bummer, because this is a lot of fun, like just getting together and like playing in person, right? Because these are the days, like, I'm older than like I think all of you here, but like these are the days where like Xbox Live was like really starting to like hit. And so playing online was cool, but it was still like something where we'd prefer to hang out in person and play. And so those events, those kind of little gatherings allowed us to do that. But what I realized at the University of Windsor was, if I start a club, then I can get free access to space on campus, and if I get space on campus, there's already good internet there. So we could just do this here for free, So that's how it started. It literally was a purely selfish motivation. I'm going to start an esports club at the University of Windsor so that I can play video games with my friends in a space somewhere. And so that's how it all started. And what we realized pretty quickly was we would have like lots of random people that we didn't know stopping in, like, hey, is that Rock Band? Like, can I play? Or like, oh, you guys are playing Halo? Like, I'm kind of pretty good at Halo. Like, maybe I could join you guys. Like, sure, yeah, come grab a seat. Let's play. And then we had like, you have your like club fair or whatever. So we built this like trifold board, and it just said gamer question mark on the top. And then we put like just like, Zelda logo and like a bunch of random logos to catch people's eyes. And then they'd come up and they'd start asking us questions. And as you can tell, I originally started off as like mostly a console gamer. So people would come up and be like, I remember there being some international students. They would come up and be like, Dota? And I'd be like, I don't. What are you saying? Like,
What's that?
what's Dota? Like, what is that? And then so like we're like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. But anyway, we started gathering interest, and like after that first club fair, we had like a couple hundred people that wanted to join our club. We're like, wow, this is like a lot bigger than we expected. So we kept running events and gatherings, and they grew pretty quickly. And then it got to a point where we kind of gathered the attention of the IT club at University of Windsor, and they had been running their own smaller gaming things, but for PC games. So we were doing console stuff, they were doing PC stuff. We're like, hey, do you guys ever hear of like Dota? Like, I don't know, where people keep walking up to us talking about this game. We never heard of it before. And they're like, yeah, Dota's huge, man. We should do a tournament together. So we started running a tournament, and then like League of Legends came out, and that blew everything out of the water, right? So like 2011, 2012, we're running League of Legends tournaments, and we would get like, we had legitimately ran a 32 team League of Legends tournament at the University of Windsor back in like 2012 or 2013. Um, and it's like something that we can't replicate anymore. Like the community was pretty wild, to get that many people together to run an event. But yeah, I think that's kind of the start for me. So the University of Windsor thing was how I got my start with that club, and then eventually it like turned into a company. So I started running like a private events company for about 5 years, like traveling around Ontario and stuff, running events and like renting out equipment, things like that. And then eventually that I got the opportunity to come here to St. Clair. So um, how did I get started? I was a lifetime gamer, and I wanted to play games with friends in a live environment. And so somehow it turned into the varsity program here at St. Clair.
That's awesome. Pudge, did you want to go next?
Yeah. Yeah, I think anyone who gets involved in esports has probably been playing video games for quite a while. I know that I've been playing video games since I was like a young little kid. But as for how I got involved in the local scene, actually, when I first went to university, I went to a really small campus. It was the University of Alberta Augustana campus, and I had no idea that collegiate esports existed. I was just in my tiny little zone. Like some of my classes had like 6 people in them, so there wasn't any programs or anything like that. But I transferred over to the University of Calgary last year, and I've been really big into Overwatch my whole life, and I was pretty good. I am pretty good, I should say. And I remember I was just walking to one of my classes, and I saw a flyer that was like esports Overwatch team tryout, and I was like, okay, I bet I could probably get into that. I wonder what this is all about. And I ended up making the team, and we were playing against other schools and stuff. I'm like, this is awesome. I didn't realize this existed. I had like an idea that esports existed because I watched the stuff, but I had no idea that collegiate existed. And I really like just fell in love with it. Started connecting with like the rest of the club, like other games. I was going to events and whatnot, and then uh, the president of the club, he graduated, and he was like, "Oh no, no one's applying to be president." So yeah, that's just kind of how I got involved. Just in love with video games and want to support the club.
Awesome. And then Sam?
Yeah, so I mean, early on, really like video games as well. But back when I got into high school, I was into a lot of traditional sports as well, focusing on floor hockey, rugby, and basketball. So I just had a competitive nature, and that was around that time that my friend introduced me to Counter Strike, and I started getting into CS:GO at that time. Through there, after high school was done, I was done in traditional sports. I wasn't really playing too much anymore. My competitive urge still existed in me, and I decided to, focus a little bit more on Counter Strike after playing it for a few years, getting into it, and I just kind of joined amateur leagues like ECA back in the day was different. It wasn't Face It, but and kind of move forward along with that and kind of just flip flop between leagues and just stayed amateur in there. And then once I got into school and I was taking my program and they started pitching the idea of doing esports, it was around the time that Valorant just came out. I think Valorant was a year and a half old at that time. And I did try Valorant in like beta and everything, but they weren't doing a Counter-Strike team, they're doing a Valorant team. So I was like, I guess I got to make the switch. I want to, play a little bit collegiate because I want to be a part of this. So made the switch to Valorant for that semester and kept playing flip flopping between Counter Strike and Valorant up until I got the chance to be coach. Mostly just stayed in touch with the team after I graduated. Made sure I followed the program, tried to help it along the way, and then once the opportunity came up where they're looking for to expand their coaches, I jumped on it from there to join Valorant.
Awesome. So I did just want to take this time to thank all of you, Pudge, Sam, Sean, for agreeing to be part of this panel. Taking time to kind of provide some insight, answer a few questions. We really do appreciate it. Thank you again, everyone who tuned in to the Meet ECPS post-secondary esports across Canada. Make sure to stay tuned because coming up next is the League of Legends panel, Making It Better to Be a Player, coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on CIE's main Twitch channel. Thanks again, everyone.
Awesome. Bye.
Thank you.